Okay, welcome back to another video. So in this chapter, guys, we're going to be talking about hours of service regulations and electronic logging devices, also known as ELDs. So let's jump in. All right, so the first thing we are going to go over is hours of service regulations. So in the trucking industry, there is a certain set amount of hours that drivers can drive every day, and that is put in place by DOT, which is the Department of Transportation. So as a dispatcher, it's important that you know how many hours drivers can drive per day so that when you're scheduling loads for them, you can kind of better coordinate their pickup times, when they're going to be able to deliver, everything in between. So this is certainly something that you want to understand so that can make you an even better dispatcher for your driver. So let's go ahead and talk about that. First and foremost, there is a 11-hour driving limit, okay? Drivers may drive a maximum of 11 hours after 10 consecutive hours off duty. Okay, so let's say, it's night, they're getting their sleep, they're getting their 10 consecutive hours of rest, and then they wake up. Okay, so now they're refreshing, they're ready to go, it's time to hit the road. So first thing they're going to do is log into their ELD, which we'll get into later, and then they're going to start the clock, and then they're going to rev up their truck, and they're going to take off. Okay, so it's just important to know from the time you start that clock, you have 11 hours, okay, and not a minute more. Okay, 11 hours. So next, 14-hour limit. So drivers may not drive beyond the 14th consecutive hour after coming on duty, following 10 consecutive hours off duty. Off-duty time does not extend the 14-hour period. So let's talk about that. I know some of you are like, well, 14 hours, I thought you said they could only drive 11. So it is true. Drivers can only drive 11 hours, but as you guys know, things happen. You can have a flat tire, an engine blowout, whatever, bad weather, you may have to pull over, anything could happen, right? So what this 14-hour limit says is that you can drive 11 hours, but in the event something happens and you have a holdup, a delay, you still have time. But after 14 hours of being active, regardless of if you're driving or not, you are done until you have 10 hours of consecutive rest. So let's go over an example of that. I don't want anybody to be confused about this because it is a little tricky, a little confusing. So let's just go over an example, okay? Let's say your driver has had his 10 hours of rest and he's up and he's logging into his ELD, his electronic logging device, and he's starting up the truck and he's getting ready to roll, okay? Let's say that's at 5 a.m., okay? Right here, that's at 5 a.m. I want it to be cute and have my little marker here. That's at 5 a.m., okay? Now, let's say at 10 a.m., he gets a flat tire, okay? Got a flat tire. Now, let's say it takes from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., he's stranded. Somebody doesn't get out there to take care of that tire for him until 3 p.m., okay? They replace the flat tire by 4 p.m. So now he's ready to start rolling again. But let's just do some math real quick. So drive time that he had was from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m., right? So that makes for 5 hours drive time, okay? Now, he had a flat tire, didn't start rolling again until 4. So even though he's had 5 hours of drive time, he's been active for 11 hours. Okay, now remember that 14-hour rule. You can drive for 11 hours, okay? But if something happens, you can be active for a total of 14. So even though he's hit 11 hours, he hasn't been driving 11 hours. So he still has some more time that he can drive, right? Because he can drive for a total of 11 hours. So flat tire gets fixed, we're back on the road and we're rolling at 4 p.m. Now it's 7 p.m. So from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., that's an extra 3 hours, right? 3 plus 11 is 14 active hours. So now we have hit that 14-hour mark. So by the time 7 p.m. comes and we've hit our 14 hours, he better be trying to find a truck stop somewhere to pull over so that he can do his 10 consecutive hours of rest. Otherwise, he will have gone over his hours, and that will show on the electronic log devices, and that's where you're going to have a problem because DAT will fine you for going over. Okay, so total drive time. He had 5 hours of drive time in this period, and then he had 3 hours of drive time in this period, which makes for a total of this is what I get for trying to be cute with my marker. A total of 8 hours drive, a total of 8 hours drive time on a 14-hour limit, okay? And that's fine because his total drive time, driving limit is how much? 11 hours, right? And he only went 8 hours. So even though he didn't get to drive 11 hours, he hit his 14-hour limit of activity. So he cannot drive again for a total of 10 consecutive hours of rest, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. Now, going back, let's talk about the 30-minute driving break. So drivers must take a 30-minute break when they have driven for a period of 8 cumulative hours without at least a 30-minute interruption, okay? So even though you're able to drive for a total of 11 hours, you do have to take a 30-minute break minimum, okay? You could take more if needed, but 30 minutes minimum after a period of 8 hours is required. The break may be satisfied by any non-driving period of 30 consecutive minutes, okay? So that just means he has to pull over. He doesn't have to go to sleep. He can pull over, go to the bathroom, get some chips, read a paper, get on Facebook, whatever. He just has to stop driving for a minimum of 30 minutes, okay? Now, let us talk about adverse driving conditions, okay? Also known as bad weather. So, with adverse driving conditions, drivers are allowed to extend the 11-hour maximum driving limit and the 14-hour driving window by up to 2 hours when adverse driving conditions are encountered. So, in the event that your driver is going through a storm or there's a tornado somewhere in the path, in the direction that he's going, you know, something that is causing him to slow down or have to come to a complete stop altogether, he is able to extend the 11-hour drive time as well as the 14-hour window by up to 2 hours, okay? So that's a good thing. Hopefully he can get to wherever he's trying to go. Now, let's talk about the ELDs, which are the electronic logging devices. Now, an electronic logging device is intended to help create a safer work environment for drivers and make it easier and faster to accurately track, manage, and share records of duty status, okay? An ELD synchronizes with a vehicle engine to automatically record the driving time for easier, more accurate hours of service and recording. Okay, so what this means, guys, is once upon a time, back in the good days of transportation, so drivers used to actually manually write their hours. They used to manually log their hours on a logging sheet. But the problem with that, which I'm pretty sure you can imagine, is that drivers were fudging their hours. What that means is that, for the road warriors that were like, I've got to get this load where it needs to be because I got to go pick up another one and I'm trying to make X amount of dollars by the end of the week. Those drivers would intentionally go over their hours, okay? And, unfortunately, that caused a lot of problems. Drivers were falling asleep on the road, having wrecks, fatalities, all types of things, and that's because they were able to so easily fudge their hours, their driving hours. So DOT put a halt on that, I would say probably back around 2018, if I'm not mistaken. Probably before that. I think it was actually closer to like 2016 or 2017 is when ELDs, electronic logging devices, came out. And so that became the new way to monitor hours. And like this little definition says here, it is tracked by the engine. So when that engine is on and it's running, the logging device is clocking that time. So there is literally no way that you can fudge this anymore. Okay? So, while it does make things more difficult and put more restriction, I'm all for it because it makes for a safer, like this says, a safer work environment and keeps drivers from burning themselves out, falling asleep at the wheel, and possibly crashing. So, this is where we are with transportation now, and it's a good thing. So, this is important for you to know. All drivers are required to have an electronic logging device, okay? So you'll hear your drivers talking about that. They know how to operate them. That's something you definitely need to know how to do because you won't be there. But it's just important for you to know what it is. So there you have it. Okay. And once again, that is going to complete the end of this chapter. As always, thank you for your time, and I will see you in the next one.